Physics has developed some mystical dimensions in tune with the Tao and ancient Buddhist revelations. Quantum theory forces us to see the universe not as a collection of physical objects, but rather as a complicated web of relations between the various parts of the unified whole. Hold that thought. Subatomic particles attract each other, combine, disperse, disintegrate, and interact. The experiment has been carried out at CERN and other laboratories. If two electrons circling a nucleus are separated and placed at different ends of a spectrum, far from each other, when one turns, the other never loses its contact with the other and turns in exact unison. It then follows that if you take these two electrons that were born of and connected to a single atom and place them at different ends of our known universe, light years apart, even then, when one electron turned, so would the other. The connection is that strong. The common creation does not sever. They will always be connected within quantum theory, no matter the time and distance involved. All matter is, by nature, mutually dependent and is nothing in itself. This came to mind last week when I learned that my mother had died. Early the Saturday morning of her death, I kept her waking for a few moments, startled, a sudden awareness waking me, then falling asleep, and then again repeatedly through to dawn and past it. But there had been no storms, no heavy stomach, nothing unusual. It was just that at the exact time when I was leaping from sleep to alertness and back was the same time during which my mother was passing. I applied known physics. Were my mother and I performing some quantum theory ourselves? My daughter electrons turning awake and asleep as my mother turned from wakefulness to permanent off? Or was I dealing in woolly-headed mysticism? Yet it happened. I possessed a mobile phone and I hated it. I controlled it. It did not control me. I rarely turned it on. That Saturday it was off. I went most of the day without it. I'd like to go through most of my life without it. I had no landline. I had emails. I was just going through the latest bunch of emails that Saturday afternoon, just going through them and reading a humorous reply from a friend about a funny email I had forwarded, when with a smile on my lips I deleted it, and up popped the next one, from Sharon, my sister. And the first words I read were there. So sorry. Our mother passed away around 4:30 a.m. A jolt of adrenaline swept through my body. A blood whoosh filled my ears, followed by a chill, then quiet, then time. With each hour that passed, and I continued on, and she remained dead, no longer a ticking heart over there somewhere, an existence in my life, there was less wondering. No more of her what if, of her humor and desperation, her sourness, her retirement home, and her big pride in my small accomplishments in this world. Another hour without her around ever again. And I had this thought: I can now forgive her everything. Attached to this big-heartedness was a rider, because she will not now be able to create any new pains to remind or reawake other past pains. So one can forgive when the threat of further grievances is permanently removed. The last time I spoke to her, 2 months ago, was it? She told me how the nurses asked her to sit up in bed, and she refused. It takes all my energy just to sit up in bed. Then my heart pounds and I begin to panic. Just doing that makes me exhausted. She'd been afraid to walk since she broke her neck 4 years ago, when she had gotten her used-up knees replaced and lost her balance at the hospital in the toilet and whacked the back of her neck on the sink on the way down. I think it was at that point, when she no longer trusted herself walking, that she began to give up, to die. Here she had brand new metal knees, but she was never really going to use them. So when she is cremated, they'll come for her ashes and have to fish out of the sticky remains her two, no doubt, still gleaming, newly minted metal knees. She did not trust her balance, her center of gravity, herself walking upright through the rest of her life, through the rest of this world. Once, twice. A few times, I imagine my mother sliced open, her innards hauled out in gobs and hunks, clumsily sewn back together, and flat naked placed in some dark perpendicular locker to abate the lighted match of the dust-to-dust biblical dictum. I still keep my mobile turned off. I don't want to talk to anyone. When she is made of dust, my sister has decided that she will fly with the ashes to Bali to honour my mother's wishes. You see, my mother's first husband of 3 weeks, Patrick Ryan, was killed in World War II at the Battle of the Coral Sea. In 1941, he was an Irish-American citizen, back visiting the homeland, a Navy man and proud of it. He met my mother, they were very young, fell head over heels, and married within a week, and took her back to the States with him. 3 weeks later, Pearl Harbor happened, and he was called up the very next day and had to report to New York. I think they were honeymooning in New England. Later, he wrote to say that he could see her on shore leave in San Diego. It was way on the other coast, but she scraped all her money together and traveled by bus and train and finally arrived, went down to the docks and could see his battleship anchored just there, out at sea. But they never let him ashore. 2 days later, she watched the ship sail away to its fate. Those were her 3 weeks of pure happiness, and she wanted her ashes spread near where his ship went down. The seas off Bali seemed close enough. My sister has emailed, "I will look into a blessing with the high priest. There are Hindu Buddhists there, not too far from Christian. I can also organize a ceremony with a Catholic priest. She will have her ceremonies and they will be beautiful, all of them. If you want to come, you are invited." And so my mother's remains will be pushed out to sea on some small ceremonial boat to get to her long-lost first husband before she met my father and the mess of all our lives began. The irony is, and there would be some irony, is that my mother never learned to swim, not a stroke. So I don't think she's going to get very far.